Ryan Wedding is a modern-day iteration of Pablo Escobar. He's a modern-day iteration of El Chapo Guzman.
In the narco underworld, attraction is a weapon. Female narcos have lured kings, toppled empires, and rewritten power plays for decades. But Ryan Wedding was different. Compared to Escobar and El Chapo, he saw manipulation coming. When seduction met calculation, the outcome wasn't romance, it was ruthless, calculated fallout that shook the underworld. Emma Coronel Aispuro. Let's start with the first woman whose actions have sent shockwaves through networks that mirror Ryan Wedding's operations. Emma Coronel Aispuro isn't just any cartel associate. She was married to the most notorious drug lord of our generation. Similarly, Ryan Wedding didn't build his billion-dollar cocaine empire alone. According to the FBI and US Treasury Department, Wedding's entire operation depended on protection from the Sinaloa cartel, specifically the Los Chapitos faction led by El Chapo's sons. Without Sinaloa's blessing, Wedding couldn't move a single kilo from Colombia through Mexico to Canada. He needed their roots, their corrupt officials, their gunmen, their infrastructure. And that's exactly why Emma Coronel Aispuro's betrayal was so devastating to operations like Wedding's.
Make no mistake about it, Ryan Wedding is a modern-day iteration of Pablo Escobar. He's a modern-day iteration of El Chapo Guzman. He is responsible for engineering a narco-trafficking and narco-terrorism program that we have not seen in a long time.
Emma Coronel married El Chapo in 2007. Her father was a Sinaloa lieutenant, so she was born into the very organization that would later protect Ryan Wedding. For years, she served as El Chapo's conduit for logistics and communications, coordinating the exact same smuggling networks that Wedding allegedly used to move his cocaine. She even helped engineer El Chapo's 2015 prison escape through a mile-long tunnel. This wasn't some naive wife. She was an operational asset who understood exactly how Sinaloa moved product across borders. Then, in February 2021, she was arrested at Dulles Airport, and she did the unthinkable. Emma Coronel cooperated with federal authorities. Her testimony exposed the inner workings of Sinaloa's logistics networks, the same networks Wedding relied upon. She revealed how cocaine moved through Mexico, which routes were used, which officials were bribed, how communications were encrypted. For Wedding, sitting in his Sinaloa safe house, believing he was untouchable, Coronel's cooperation meant the playbook he was using was now in the hands of the DEA. The Wedding's network allegedly moved 60 metric tons of cocaine annually through Sinaloa-controlled routes. Every route Coronel exposed, every method she revealed, every corrupt official she named, all of it potentially compromised Wedding's operations. When El Chapo's own wife starts talking, nobody in the Sinaloa ecosystem is safe, including the Canadian snowboarder hiding in Mexico who thought cartel protection made him untouchable. The message to Wedding was clear. If El Chapo's wife would betray the cartel, what was stopping anyone else from doing the same to him? Sandra Avila Beltran. Every kilo of cocaine Ryan Wedding allegedly moved from Colombia to Canada traveled along routes that Sandra Avila Beltran helped pioneer. This isn't speculation, it's geography and history. Wedding's operation moved product through Pacific corridors, and those corridors were literally built by La Reina del Pacifico decades before Wedding ever snorted his first line. Sandra Avila Beltran, born in 1960, was the niece of Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, the godfather who created the template for modern Mexican drug trafficking. She pioneered the Pacific cocaine routes from Colombia to Mexico that every major trafficker still uses today. When Wedding allegedly bought cocaine from Colombian suppliers and shipped it through Mexican ports, he was using infrastructure Sandra built.
And the sheer scale of it, I mean, they're talking 60 tons of cocaine a year that he was moving, which if you consider the size of the MV Mature or one of these, it just shows you the scale of it. So they've charged 16 people in connection with this drug ring.
But here's how she messed with Wedding's operation. Her 2007 arrest, alongside 9 tons of cocaine, didn't just put her in prison. It exposed the entire corruption network that kept Pacific routes running. Prosecutors discovered which port officials were on the payroll, which police commanders looked the other way, which politicians provided protection. The purges that followed her arrest destabilized Pacific smuggling for years. Routes that had operated smoothly for decades suddenly became contested territory. New bribes had to be negotiated, new officials had to be corrupted, new relationships had to be built.
Yeah. Buying cocaine and other substances, clearly meth in particular would be one.
Yeah.
That they're transporting it from the cocaine from Colombia through Mexico onwards to the US and Canada, What reason would they be in Dubai? It would be to make connections with the European market, which they have been more and more seeing as a growth market.
By the time Wedding was allegedly building his empire in the early 2000s, he inherited a landscape of chaos that Avila Beltran's downfall had created. The routes were there, but they were contested. The infrastructure existed, but it was unstable. Every shipment Wedding moved faced risks that wouldn't have existed if Sandra had never been caught. After her 2015 release, she sued Netflix over her portrayal, proving that even retired queens still have fight in them. Wedding learned from her example, the woman who builds the routes can also bring them crashing down. Guadalupe Fernandez Valencia. If you want to understand how Ryan Wedding's financial networks were vulnerable from day one, you need to understand Guadalupe Fernandez Valencia. She wasn't just any cartel accountant, she was the highest-ranking known female in the Sinaloa cartel for over 30 years, and she worked directly for the same faction that protected Wedding. Here's the direct connection that should terrify every trafficker. Wedding's operation was protected by Los Chapitos, El Chapo's sons. Guadalupe Fernandez Valencia managed Los Chapitos' finances from Chicago. She knew how their money moved, which accounts held which funds, which shell companies they used, which crypto wallets received payments.
He controls one of the most prolific and violent drug trafficking organizations in this world. He is currently the largest distributor of cocaine in Canada. His organization is responsible for importing approximately 60 metric tons of cocaine a year into Los Angeles via semi-trucks from Mexico.
When Wedding paid the Chapitos for protection and route access, which authorities allege he did, that money flowed through networks Valencia understood intimately. She didn't just know the Chapitos' finances, she knew the finances of everyone who did business with them. Her 2016 arrest and subsequent cooperation with the DEA resulted in over $500 million in asset seizures, $500 million frozen, seized, gone. But the real damage was the information she provided about how Sinaloa's North American distribution worked. Wedding's operation used Los Angeles, San Bernardino, and Riverside counties as hubs, exactly the areas where Valencia knew how Chapitos' money flowed. Her testimony targeted Canadian distribution extensions specifically. Every financial pattern she revealed helped investigators understand how cocaine money moved from California to Canada. When Wedding's wife Miriam was later sanctioned for money laundering using cryptocurrency, authorities already knew what to look for. They'd learned from Valencia exactly how Sinaloa-connected traffickers moved money. Wedding's financial networks were compromised before he even knew it. Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia. While Emma Coronel and Guadalupe Valencia damaged Wedding's operation through betrayal, Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia took a different approach: open warfare. As the wife of El Mencho, leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, she helps run the organization trying to destroy the very cartel protecting Ryan Wedding. Gonzalez Valencia, born in the 1960s, married El Mencho and allegedly manages CJNG's financial operations. Her brothers founded Los Queens, CJNG's money laundering arm. This is a family at war with the Sinaloa cartel, the same cartel keeping Wedding alive and operational. Here's how this directly affected Wedding. CJNG has been waging bloody warfare against Sinaloa for years. Every time CJNG attacks Sinaloa territory, it disrupts the routes Wedding allegedly used. Every Sinaloa safe house that gets hit, every Sinaloa gunman who gets killed, every Sinaloa shipment that gets intercepted, all of it weakens the infrastructure Wedding depended upon. Wedding was allegedly hiding in Sinaloa territory while this war raged around him. The violence wasn't abstract, it was happening in the very state where he lived. Over 2,400 homicides since September 2024 alone. When you're a foreign drug trafficker depending on cartel protection, that level of violence means your protectors are distracted, weakened, potentially unable to guarantee your safety. Gonzalez Valencia's multiple arrests in 2018 and 2021 sparked retaliatory violence that made Wedding's situation even more precarious. Every time authorities moved against her family, CJNG hit back harder against Sinaloa. The woman leading CJNG's finances was indirectly making Wedding's life a living hell, not by targeting him directly, but by destroying his protectors piece by piece. Before we continue, let's establish exactly who Ryan Wedding is and why these women's actions mattered so much to his operation. Ryan James Wedding was born September 14, 1981, in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Olympic snowboarder at 20, criminal by 25, cartel-protected drug lord by 30. His transformation was rapid and complete. After a 2010 cocaine conviction and 4 years in prison, Wedding fled to Mexico and built something unprecedented: a Canadian-run Sinaloa-protected network moving 60 metric tons of cocaine annually. He adopted the alias El Jefe, the boss.
We really didn't know about Ryan Wedding until he stepped off the plane. He was very confident that he was just going to be able to pull this off. This was going to be a deal like any other that he may have done up in Canada. And again, we didn't have a huge history at that point of him. We did not know he was a snowboarder.
His operation generated over $1 billion, used semi-trucks to move cocaine through California hubs, and allegedly ordered multiple murders, including a federal witness in Colombia. By 2025, he was number 6 on the FBI's most wanted list, with a $15 million bounty. Every woman on this list affected that operation. Now let's continue. Enedina Arellano Felix. Ryan Wedding's cocaine had to cross the US-Mexico border somewhere. According to federal indictments, his operation used semi-trucks to move product through Southern California, which means his shipments competed for access to the exact same border crossings controlled by Enedina Arellano Felix and her Tijuana cartel. Enedina, born around 1961, inherited leadership of the Tijuana cartel after her brothers were arrested or killed. The Arellano Felix organization controls key plazas along the California border, the same border Wedding needed to cross. Here's how Enedina's operation directly affected Wedding. The Tijuana and Sinaloa cartels have been rivals for decades, despite occasional truces. Every plaza Tijuana controls is one that Sinaloa can't use freely. When Wedding's shipments needed to cross into California, they faced a landscape shaped by Tijuana-Sinaloa competition. Wedding's hubs were in LA, San Bernardino, and Riverside counties. To reach those hubs, cocaine had to cross borders where Tijuana and Sinaloa fought for control. Enedina's strategic moves, her alliances, her territorial defenses, her competition with Sinaloa, all affected which routes were safe and which were suicide. Accountant-turned-cartel leader transformed Tijuana from a violence-first organization into a sophisticated operation focused on controlling border infrastructure. For Wedding's Sinaloa-protected shipments, that meant navigating a competitive landscape where every crossing had a price, every route had a rival, and every shipment faced potential interception by a female-led cartel with decades of border expertise. Enedina didn't have to target Wedding directly. She just had to make his border crossings more expensive, more dangerous, and more complicated. Mission accomplished. Jessica Oseguera. Jessica Oseguera isn't just any CJNG operative, she's the daughter of El Mencho himself. When the FBI talks about the organization trying to destroy Wedding's Sinaloa protectors, they're talking about her family's cartel. Every move Jessica made directly affected the war against the people keeping Wedding alive. Jessica Johanna Oseguera Gonzalez, La Negra, born March 3, 1986, managed CJNG's US operations and finances, tequila brands, music promotion, legitimate businesses laundering illegitimate money. She was expanding CJNG's reach into the exact same American markets where Wedding distributed cocaine.
Today, the Justice Department is proud to announce new developments in our ongoing investigation into Ryan James Wedding. Wedding is the former Olympian from Canada who is now the leader of a transnational criminal enterprise. He's currently on the FBI's, and has been, top 10 most wanted list.
Her February 2020 arrest in Washington, D.C. wasn't just a personal setback, it was a declaration of war. When you arrest El Mencho's daughter, CJNG responds with overwhelming violence against everyone connected to the arrest. And since American authorities were simultaneously investigating Sinaloa-connected traffickers like Wedding, the pressure increased on everyone. Here's the direct impact on Wedding. Every time CJNG retaliates against Sinaloa, Wedding's protectors have to divert resources from protecting foreign traffickers to fighting domestic wars. Gunmen who might guard Wedding's safe houses are instead defending Sinaloa territory. Money that might bribe officials for Wedding's shipments is instead funding warfare against CJNG. Jessica's arrest also revealed how CJNG was expanding into American markets, the same markets Wedding served. If CJNG succeeded in taking Sinaloa's territory, Wedding would either have to switch allegiances, pay tribute to new masters, or die. Jessica Oseguera was helping lead the organization that wanted to make make Wedding's protectors extinct. Luz Irene Fajardo Campos. Luz Irene Fajardo Campos proved something that should have terrified Ryan Wedding. You don't need cartel royalty connections to build a trafficking empire in Sinaloa territory, and you don't need them to get destroyed either. La Comadre was a trained lawyer from a middle-class family who built her own independent operation, just like Wedding tried to do. Her story is basically Wedding's story with a different ending. She operated in Sinaloa territory with loose cartel association. She moved Colombian cocaine. She thought she was smart enough to avoid capture. Her 2017 arrest in Bogota, Colombia, and subsequent 22-year sentence showed exactly what happens when independent operators get caught. Her trial revealed corruption networks in Sinaloa territory, the same territory where Wedding operated. Every corrupt official she exposed was one less official available to help Wedding, but here's the part that probably kept Wedding awake at night. After Fajardo Campos was arrested, her sons were murdered. The cartel world doesn't just punish the person who gets caught, they punish the family. Wedding had a wife, a girlfriend, associates he cared about. Fajardo Campos's fate showed him exactly what was at stake. Every exposure in Sinaloa territory increased scrutiny on everyone operating there. When Fajardo Campos went down, investigators learned more about how independent operations functioned within Sinaloa's ecosystem. That knowledge eventually helped them understand how Wedding's operation worked too. The independent queen's downfall was a preview of Wedding's future. Leticia Rodriguez Lara. While Wedding allegedly focused on Pacific routes, Leticia Rodriguez Lara controlled Mexico's Caribbean coast, and her existence proved that Sinaloa's protection wasn't absolute. Doña Leti rose from corrupt federal police agent to queen of the Riviera Maya, eventually breaking from Sinaloa to run her own Cancun cartel. Here's the Wedding connection. Her defection from Sinaloa showed that even loyal members could become rivals. If a former Sinaloa operative could turn against the cartel and survive, what did that say about Wedding's long-term security? Sinaloa couldn't even control their own people. Rodriguez Lara's 2017 Riviera Maya shootout that left 5 dead showed the violence that erupts when Sinaloa associates go independent. Her multiple arrests demonstrated that law enforcement was actively targeting female-led operations, a category that included Wedding's wife and girlfriend who allegedly managed his finances. The ongoing 2025 prosecution of her son, El Doba, proved that even the next generation gets caught eventually. Wedding's network included young associates too. If Doña Leti's son couldn't escape, Wedding's people were equally vulnerable. Her territory on the Caribbean coast also mattered strategically. If Wedding ever needed to diversify his routes away from the Pacific, say if Sinaloa's Pacific routes became too hot, the eastern routes were controlled by independent queens like Doña Leti, who had no loyalty to Sinaloa or anyone they protected. Melissa Margarita Calderon Ojeda. Ryan Wedding allegedly ordered murders to protect his operation, but Melissa Calderon Ojeda, La China, was murder. She was linked to over 150 killings as Sinaloa's premier assassin. When Sinaloa needed someone dead, they called La China. This matters for Wedding because he saw firsthand what his protectors were capable of. When Wedding allegedly ordered hits on rivals, witnesses, and people who stole from him, he was using the same enforcement infrastructure La China helped build. The culture of violence she embodied was the culture Wedding adopted.
Sure, so it's hard as a defendant, first of all, when you have so many charges against you. If it's a single charge saying, okay, this like robbery happened on this particular date, time, and place, okay, so then the defense says, hey, as long as we can get a not guilty, verdict on that one thing, we're good. When you're charged with like all of these crimes, it's like the only way he gets his freedom is by winning every single one of them. That is, the odds are stacked against him, first of all.
Her 2015 arrest at Cabo San Lucas Airport removed one of Sinaloa's most effective enforcers, but it also created factional violence that destabilized the organization. When your top killer gets arrested, power vacuums emerge. Factions fight. The organization that's supposed to protect you starts fighting itself. By the time Wedding was building his empire post-2011, Sinaloa was dealing with the aftermath of losing enforcers like La China. The factional violence she helped spark continued for years, creating an unstable environment where even protected traffickers couldn't feel completely safe. La China also proved that Sinaloa's own people could be arrested and prosecuted. If their top assassin could go down, nobody was safe. Wedding watched Sinaloa's enforcers get picked off one by one, knowing that eventually the same fate might await him. The women in Wedding's inner circle. Every woman we've discussed so far affected Wedding's operation from outside, through betrayal, warfare, competition, or exposure. But the women who truly messed with Ryan Wedding were standing right next to him. They were his wife, his girlfriend, his madam, his associates, and they became the evidence that brought him down.
We found the woman's name came up twice in police investigations tied to money laundering. We're not naming her here since she's not charged with a crime, but records show she and Wedding moved in together in Coquitlam, BC after he got out of prison. Around the time authorities say he was building his own criminal network.
According to U.S. Treasury sanctions, these women powered Wedding's empire. Miriam Andrea Castillo Moreno, Wedding's wife, sanctioned for laundering drug proceeds using cryptocurrency and assisting violent acts. She allegedly managed the financial flows that kept Wedding's billion-dollar operation running. When investigators traced the crypto, they traced Miriam. When they traced Miriam, they traced Wedding. Daniela Alejandra Acuña Macias, his 23-year-old Colombian girlfriend, allegedly accepted hundreds of thousands in drug money and gathered intelligence on rivals. She was Wedding's eyes and ears in Colombia, where his cocaine originated. Every piece of intelligence she gathered could become evidence if she ever decided to cooperate. Carmen Yelinet Valoyes Flores, the madam who ran a high-end prostitution ring in Mexico City, arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder for helping coordinate the assassination of a federal witness. She introduced Wedding to Daniela. Her network helped track the witness. She became a direct link between Wedding and murder. Julieth Catherine Tejada, the Orlando-based escort charged with helping locate and kill that same federal witness. She allegedly allowed eavesdropping on communications that revealed the witness's location. The witness is now dead, and Julieth is in custody, potentially ready to testify against Wedding, just like Emma Coronel betrayed El Chapo, just like Guadalupe Valencia betrayed the Chapitos. The women closest to power always know the most, and Wedding surrounded himself with women who knew everything about his operation. Every single one of them is a potential cooperating witness. The arrest and what comes next. On January 22, 2026, after years of believing Sinaloa protection made him untouchable, Ryan Wedding was arrested in Mexico City. Every woman on this list contributed to the environment that made his capture possible. On January 26, 2026, Wedding pleaded not guilty to all 17 felony charges, detained without bail. Trial begins March 24, 2026. Ryan Wedding thought he was untouchable. He had Sinaloa protection, billions in cocaine money, and a network spanning 4 countries. But every woman on this list proved him wrong. Emma Coronel exposed the protection network he relied upon. Sandra Avila Beltran built and then destabilized the routes he used. Guadalupe Valencia exposed the financial systems his money flowed through. Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia waged war on his protectors. Enedina Arellano Felix competed for his border crossings. Jessica Oseguera escalated the violence that made his hiding place a war zone. Luz Fajardo Campos showed his vulnerability as an independent operator. Leticia Rodriguez Lara proved Sinaloa's protection had limits. Melissa Calderon Ojeda demonstrated the factional violence that weakened his protectors. And the women in his own circle, his wife, his girlfriend, his madam, his associates, they became the web of evidence that federal investigators used to build their case. Women now comprise 15% of leadership in Mexican drug trafficking organizations. Female arrests have risen 124% since 2012. The era of the female narco is expanding. For men like Ryan Wedding, these women prove the ultimate truth of the drug trade. Your greatest vulnerability is standing right next to you. That is what happens when female narcos mess with Ryan Wedding. Click on the cards on screen for more about Ryan's hidden life.